Before we start, many of you would be familiar with the spate and a series of incidences that we continue to see in our country, and might be asking ourselves, well, why do we make such a big deal now when we live with this every single day of our lives? I mean, some of the numbers that came through today, the crime statistics published by the Ministry of Police, indicate that this is not only something that happens when we draw our attention to it. It happens even when we're not paying attention. 7 women being murdered every single day. We also saw about 3 children dying every day as a result of murder. And the number of women who are victims of attempted murder, assault with the intent to inflict grievous bodily harm, and assault stood at 1,184, 7,815, and 10,829 respectively. Now, that figure of assault, 10,829 assaults happening every single year. Now, it's down 3.7%. But I mean, what's that in the bigger scheme of things? Why does that matter that it's even down 3.7% when even one assault is one too many? Now, we've also seen that 1,184 children were victims of attempted murder. Also saw sexual offenses against children accounting for 24,387 of the reported crimes against minors. Now, that is up 3.8% from the previous tally that was taken in the, I guess the last time these numbers were taken, which was about 18 months or so. And it's quite clear that there are multiple stories beyond and within some of these numbers of muffled screams, cracked bones, pulled hair, shaken psyches. And today we're going to take a look at some of those stories. Look within our newsrooms, in our backstages, in our audition couches. We also want to talk to us as Amachita, as our sisters have asked of us to go out and speak to our brothers and see how we can create an environment that is different to this. How can we face the monsters that we are and that we live alongside? The monster in the mirror, the one you pee next to in the next cubicle, the one who sits across the table in the court at tavern, or the many who roam our streets, stages, studios, campuses, and our workplaces. We want to look at ourselves, at our locker room chatter, and some of our bro codes that rationalize and give credibility to ubupanga, misogyny, and violence. It's a conversation, or as Walter Rodney said, a grounding with my brothers this evening. Our sisters are here too, courageously so, because we can't build anything without them. We're grateful for their patience with us, and we're here to explore, to unsettle, to suggest, to learn, and more importantly, to inspire and inform how we act. And I'll be hearing shortly from our big bosses here at Metro FM. Sibongile Mtyali is going to join us shortly to just lay out the scene, of course, of why we are here, why are we having this conversation. I'm also joined by guests this evening, and I'm going to be joined shortly by Patrick Shai. He's a renowned actor and founder of Khuluma Ndoda, a movement of men who are leading to end gender-based violence. Lolo Saliso is here with us. She's the national organizer of Hashtag Total Shutdown, also involved in the intersectional women's movement against GBV. Mo Senez is also here. She's the head of communications at Hashtag Not In My Name, which is a campaign focusing on issues of socio-economic and social justice. Going to be joined shortly also by the host of the Morning Flavor here at Metro FM, Mo Flavor. And we're also joined by Muruti, a gospel artist, pastor, TV and radio personality. Many of you would know him on Metro FM's Sacred Space. Kayam Tet was here with us as well. I'm also joined by the SRC president at the University of the Witwatersrand, Sisanda Mbolek, was here with us as well. And also joined by clinical psychologist and author Thabang Tlaka. PH is also going to join us. He's a club DJ and Metro FM personality. And we're also going to be joined later on by author, speaker, businessman, and ex-convict Themba Lukele is going to join us here to speak to us. We're also going to get some perspectives, as many of you would know, that some of these crimes are often reported, and sometimes there's a bungling of the investigation or a bungling of the prosecution or even some of the forensic evidence. And we're going to be talking to the National Prosecuting Authority about some of the challenges that they are having in prosecuting effectively some of these gender-based incidences of violence, because it's all good and well for us to want, as the President suggested, to impose maximum sentences and much more harsher punitive measures. But if the system is not going to ensure that people actually get into the criminal justice system, get into prosecution, then what's the point? So those are some of the things we're going to pick up this evening. As always, I'd love to hear from you. Give us a ring on 089-110-3377. We are on YouTube tonight. We're streaming live on YouTube on the Metro FM page. You check us out also on Facebook. coming to you live on the Metro FM page. And the only place where we're not streaming live is Twitter. We're also on Instagram, coming to you there. So do check us out there. It's certainly going to be some interesting conversations this evening. But the whole aim is not to just have a talk shop. We want to get to some solutioning here. And we also want to ensure that we do away with this, environment of fear when it comes to us as Amachita calling each other out on some of the behavior that we interact with every single day. That's what this space is about. We're with you this evening for the extended version of our special broadcast right through to 10 p.m. this evening. We normally take leave of you at 9 p.m., so we're chowing some of Centler's time tonight, but it was our Skolela in the 9 to midnight team. Because certainly these are conversations of national and I would venture to say global import. That's what's happening this evening. As always, pleasure to be with you this evening. Klasenza lesiqhelo kuyenza okokoko. Namhlanje sibanga economy sibanga isidima samanina notate bethu. Good evening to you.
Phew.
So he's not coming. That's fine.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Are you brother?
Also, time because you're doing serious things that night.
Someone needs to switch it. Jules, you're going to count me down, Brabha, no? After 7:30 through to 10 p.m. this evening. And you might be asking yourselves, what the rationale is for having this conversation. And if you are, I must say it's about time for you to open your eyes, because it's quite clear that we have a crisis of national proportions on our hands, and it's time for all of us to weigh in on that conversation and be able to hold each other to account. And to better answer that question of why we felt as the station, Metro FM, that we should wade into this particular debate and what we think we can add to this conversation. The station manager is here, as I said, Abapati Bakwana Nabo, and Sibongile Mtyali is sitting right next to me here. Sbo, good evening to you, and welcome to Metro FM Talk.
Good evening. Thanks very much.
Yazi okonqala Metro FM Talk awukwazi ukushow yami.
I haven't.
Oh
my
not even
God.
once.
It's been like what? 8 months?
No,
No.
not 8 months. It was about 4 months or so. 4 months or
I
so.
was still coming.
Please, man, please. Ngaphelele 6 months. Ngaphelele 6 months.
Okay, I'll come on Monday next week.
Okay, all right. Sbo, why are we here?
So, as a brand that young people look up to, we actually thought we have a responsibility to start having these conversations. Not only this conversation, but this is just the beginning of many conversations that we need to have. We feel that we cannot remain silent when our country is under siege. So today is just a launch of many conversations that we need to have. However, like I said earlier on, I just hate talk shops. I just believe that this should open a door for us to begin to action one way or the other to ensure that we actually bring back peace in our country and protect those that are vulnerable. The scourge of, gender-based violence in the country, we cannot turn a blind eye. And today we thought, let's start by having a conversation that a lot of people don't have, because men are aware of what is happening. We've cried, we've screamed, we've toyed, we've tried everything, but we're still getting killed as women. We're still getting abused, and unfortunately, we won't be able to change the environment and the situation until men come to the party and actually stop it. I'm not interested in talking about reducing the numbers. And I'm glad that when you spoke about the figures, you indicated that it doesn't really make any difference whether we are down 3% or 1%. It should just stop. So the idea is for us to have this conversation, starting with decoding the bro code.
Sure.
You guys are aware of what is happening in our country. You know the perpetrators. What are the conversations that you are having when women are not around?
So well, we also know Metro FM is a workplace
Yes.
for many women as well.
Yes.
And I'm quite interested in some of the things that are being done internally, because I think this is also an introspective conversation.
Exactly, it is. So the same conversation that we're having here is the same conversation that we're having on the floor. It's the same conversation that we're having as an organization, as the SAPC. It's the same conversation that radio is having. But like I said, I just hate talk that goes nowhere. I just want to get to a place where there is, feasible results from the talk that we have, where there's action, where we see, each one of us getting each one of us to account, for things that we do, whether it's the pull head down syndrome or it's men in the workplace or whatever it is. I don't understand why in 2019 we're still having a conversation. I mean, what kind of a country is this where you have an 8-year-old who's supposed to be playing outside, getting dirty, but they're facing off with a rapist in court? Like, seriously.
So, before I let you go, as you said, you don't want this to be a talk shop. And many people might be asking themselves, what is Metro wanting to achieve from this particular conversation in a context of many other, conversations we're going to have beyond this?
In actual fact, what I want to see at the end of this conversation is a commitment from the men around this table. What is it that you're going to do as men around this table? We shouldn't look at it as men in South Africa as if, it's out there, it's not here. I was just talking about the fact that as I leave this building this evening, am I going to make it home safe? So
are you going to even make it to your car?
Am I going to make it to my car? Can I take the stairs right now, alone and go from 8th floor to the ground floor? So from this conversation, from the men sitting around this table, if we can just get a commitment from Ayabonga, from Mo, from PH, what is it that you're going to do as a person to contribute towards the goal of ending gender-based violence in this country?
Well, thank you very much. That there was Sibongile Mtyali. She's the station head here at Metro FM. Outlining some of the key issues that we're going to be touching on this evening. And I'd like Muruti, if you can come closer there. You can't hide today. I think you must come closer, Muruti, because the tail end of what Usbongile is talking about, speaks to the big issue here. And much of the issue is we have a massive problem. And Kaya, I want to start with you, man. You work within the ministry, you also work within the entertainment industry. I'm not saying you would have come across many of these instances, but there is certainly this understanding that one, fine, there's a bro code, there's all manner of locker room conversation that happens about women. And maybe that's a perfect starting point for us this evening. In the space that you work in the world of entertainment, even within the ministry, there are certain things that we've been socialized into as Amachita in the groundings that we have with ourselves. What are some of those things, and more importantly, how do those things factor into our own development as men when we get older and we do all manner of things to our partners, to our sisters, and in some instances more horribly even to our children?
Thank you so much, Abonga, to all the guests that are here today. I think it's a pleasure and honor for me to be here. I think there's a serious problem, and I think you're 100% right. It's perpetrated by the so-called bro code. It's perpetrated by the giggles and the laughs and the jokes and the turning a blind eye. And just making jokes about things that we should not be making a joke about. And that eventually leads us to the crisis we are in. That whatever was a joke, whatever started off as something, I even remember stuff that we used to talk about in high school. You know, that whatever was a joke in high school is suddenly a reality in my sister's life today. You know what I mean? And it's no longer funny anymore. Now when you look back to something that, you know, we used to creep over and look at in the girls' toilet what they were doing. You know, it started with those little things that we did, you know, whatever. It's just small nuances that on the road, you know, what we do when we travel, what we do backstage, you know, what happens in the DMs, what happens wherever. It's just small giggles. It happens in our WhatsApp groups. It's screen munches, it's videos that we take that become laughs and giggles, that become things that should be called out and corrected. I've been part of those conversations, and I'm not going to act like I've never been part of those conversations. We possibly have all been part of those conversations at some point in our lives, and they've landed us in this place, as you've rightly said the put.
We're going to take an ad shortly, and I'm going to move to my right. And you might be asking yourself, because we must start where the problem is. And I think that no better start than that. And we will hear some of the views from the ladies in the room and what they make of some of the conversations we're having here. And more importantly, the kind of change that we need to undertake as Amadoda. And when I come back, I'm going to move to my right. I've got Mo Flava here on my right. He's the host of the Morning Flava. Let's take this break. And when we come back, Mo, I'm coming to you, my brother. Now, as I indicated before we went to the break, siqala ngobhuti, because I think that's where the problem is. And I've got on my right the host of the Morning Flava here on Metro FM Talk. Mo Flava, how are you doing, brother?
Good evening, my dog. Are you good?
I'm good. I'm good.
Doing some good work. Country duty. Every
Siyazama,
day we're
Mhlekazi.
tuning in.
Siyazama,
Yeah.
Mhlekazi, akululanga.
Sure.
Mo, I was talking to Kaya, just in the previous question about the socialization as a machita, right? The stuff that you learn at home, but the stuff that you learn from your friends, right? The stuff that you learn in passing without even being conscious of it. And then the stuff that you intentionally action as well, right? That you engage in the understanding. And I want you maybe to respond to that issue around the socialization. But also, we've also seen many of the lists coming out, the naming and shaming of many sort of perpetrators of gender-based violence. We saw your name coming through there as well. So maybe if you can respond to that as well, yeah?
I think I'll start with the first part of it.
Sure.
You talk about at home. You talk about the setup. Where you grew up, the environment. There's so many places where we learn certain types of behavior, and in the moment, it may not seem like something that you are learning or something that you'll even do one day. But a simple thing like if you grew up in any environment where you grew up with Amajita, Ekasi, who talk about how his girl was out or was chilling with another guy at the corner, and all of a sudden he was upset, ngambamba ngempama. And we just sort of roll past that like it's nothing.
We normalize it.
And we focus on the fact that what was she doing at the corner? Why did she go to that party without telling you?
Yeah.
Why did she roll with those other guys? And then the part of umbameng empama is just like something that we all roll over. And I think that's one of the biggest problems. So it's not even about, at times whether or not you come from a decent home. It's so entrenched in our society. And one of the biggest questions I have is how do you go into the thinking of every man in the country and tell them that, listen, this is not right. You cannot abuse women. You cannot, be violent towards women. This is how you raise kids. And all those values. It's a challenge. And I think we as men need to be at a point where we own up to it. Whether you are directly involved or not. Half the time, it's like, well, this doesn't happen to my sister or my mom, or I don't do that to my girlfriend, and therefore it's not my problem. It is your problem. Because we men are not just protectors of the homes that we are from, or the people you work with, or the people you are in class with. It's women across the board. Because if I'm driving somewhere, or let's say I'm in a club somewhere and I see a guy beating his woman, I can't just stand by because she's not my sister or not my aunt or my mom. I need to get involved. And
but what happens more when we take that approach?
Sure.
Esifundisweyo now that says yazinto zabantu ababini azingeno.
I don't know how many times I've had this conversation on the radio, and I've heard a lot of that sentiment coming through. I would say predominantly from men, where they say, in my experience, I've tried to step in and I'm the one who ends up being, assaulted by, the guy that's beating up his woman. A part of me wants to say, I hear you, but, the more I hear the story, the more I realize that that is part of the fight. Unfortunately, it is part of the fight. So you cannot be afraid to stand up for a woman. And there are times where you end up being a victim. And, we can sing songs of praises for you for taking a bullet. But if you think about it, if that was your mom or your sister or your daughter, and there was a guy who was witness to that, what would you have wanted them to do? To walk past and say, angizingeni, tomorrow they'll be dating again, or to say, by virtue of principle, I will intervene and, what I can't control, I can't control, but what I can control, I can control.
Sure.
So I think that level of thinking, and how do we get into the minds of every man in the country? I think that's a big challenge. It's not just about the government. It's not just about, the women and the ladies and the sisters crying. The cries have been heard. It's also about many other things. Now, yes, as you pointed out, there have been a number of lists rolling out on social media, naming and shaming men who have been accused of all types of sexual crimes and, rape, assault, you name it. And just from my experience and what I've seen, a lot of those people are well-known individuals, men who are in the entertainment space. Some are in prominent positions in various sectors of society. And the unfortunate part in my personal experience is that, well, A, I was on the list, as you pointed out, and B, it is very sad to have to respond to something that never happened, right, said by someone you don't know, by a source that is not even verified, and by somebody who is completely anonymous. Because the problem is that if you if you go on a social media account now and post something that isn't true, there's a massive danger to that. All these falsehoods are dangerous, and I'm not one to say, you know, whether the people named are guilty or not. I can only speak for myself.
Sure.
And I can categorically say that none of the stuff is true. So what saddens me the most is that we are challenged with a massive fight here as society. And here we are approaching it in a very callous way. It is very important for women to speak out if they are violated, right? And I know it's difficult because you get to a police station, you hear the stories. The police are not, trained properly or do not have the ability or the capacity to handle those stories when women come and report incidents of rape or any other sexual crime. So there are challenges in just the process of women being able to tell their stories about what happened. But there's a massive danger. And now you're sitting with a situation where you have all these anonymous things being put on social media, and people must somehow respond to something that perhaps is true or not even true. In my case, it's absolutely not true. And I've had to think about this because, at a level of saying, well, if something like that happens to me, what you did, what do I do? Of course, taking the legal route is absolutely the way to go, because if somebody says something about you that isn't true, it's defamatory, and you've got every right to protect that about yourself. But again, to have to trace an anonymous account that gets shut down every 5 minutes and reopened, I mean, it's a big thing. But for me, the biggest part of it is there are real, legit stories out there, and now the question is, do we believe them or not? And I think these accounts have created more harm than they have good.
Sure.
Because now, yes, name all the men you want in the country. Name the president, name whatever you want. But is that stuff verified? And now questions are they telling the truth? Do we believe them? Do we not?
PH?
Right,
buddy.
Good?
Good. PH, I'm good, man. I'm
Yes.
good. Nisabenza ngobusuku, madoda.
Yes.
Many of you, as Mo was saying, a lot of entertainers on that list.
Yes.
A lot of DJs on that list.
Yes.
And I want you to let us into that space.
Okay.
I mean, some of the conversations that you have among some of your male counterparts who work with you in the same space.
Yeah.
And more importantly, we hear these terms thrown around like ingatayondo,
Yes.
sithetha ngesitoko,
Yes.
this way,
Yes.
all manner of other things,
Yes.
which of course then I guess add to the commodification of women and this whole thing. But these are our women, right? There's also that kind of very possessive kind of nature.
Yeah.
Just let us into that kind of space that you guys work in, and some of the things that you see there, the kind of locker room chat you have.
I think for me, the first thing I just want to touch on is the concept of unlearning things. A lot of things have been normalized from a young age, and it's the norm now to wulisa usisotile and you touch her on her shoulder. And some ladies are very uncomfortable with that, or it's kiss on the cheek or whatever it is. You ukule, okanye ukhuliswe, saying that that's normal. So I
Sure.
think for me, a lot of things as amajita, we need to unlearn, and it's a foreign concept to people. But I'm not going to say to let you in or whatever. It's not a DJ thing. It's not a soccer player thing. It's a man thing.
It's a society
It's
thing,
a societal thing where we are in these WhatsApp groups, and like Kaya said, there are screen grabs. There are, and even the way we address, even the way men address men nowadays, because it's cowardly behavior. But the way we address females, or too, is the way. Do you know what I'm saying? Like we're all a bunch of men discussing a screen grab, So I think for me, I've always said the biggest thing is unlearning a lot of these things. Calling out imbinji zethu. Yela mfethu ayikho right le way. And I hate having to say your sister, my daughter, my mother. It should be a normal thing whether you do have a sister, a daughter, whatever it is, whether you do or don't. It should be a normal thing. Not about until it happened to my sister, or
Sure,
because I have
sure.
a daughter, we need to guard our females. It shouldn't be like that. It should be normal. That should be the norm, not our current situation. So I don't want to say it's a DJ thing or a soccer player thing or an accountant thing. It is a man thing. And rewind. The rewind button.
Sure.
And I don't think a lot of guys realize the problem that's at hand. Again, like Mo said, it's not happening in my circle, so it's fine.
And we kind of make it the victim's problem, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
something they
Yeah,
must talk about
yeah.
it. They must lead those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, like my biggest thing was a lot of guys fear being called trash. When a lot of women fear dying. Yeah, well, that's women's reality. Is that, again, Unene didn't think that when she was going to the post office, on earth, you know. We can. I saw a post on social media about a guy. He was half naked. Yeah, well, we're privileged as a Matwata to walk around half naked with no t-shirt on, you know, and not being called anything. But to see Sinjay Abenesli test Tile.
Cat call forever.
You know, that is normalized. That the in the internet, and that's my biggest thing, is like, we can talk all we want. I think we need to press rewind.
Tabang, let me bring you in here, and Mo, I'll come back to you. You're a clinical psychologist.
Yes.
And some of the things that I've heard here, two key themes come out for me.
Yeah.
In every space, in every industry, across class, right?
Yeah.
This thing happens as much in Orange Farm as it does behind that gated community in Sandton.
Yeah.
It happens in white families, it happens in black families, it happens in white spaces and in black spaces as well.
Yes.
What is it about this structure that PH was mapping out, saying, you know, we like to maybe sit back when it looks gory, when we see blood, when we see all of those things, but we don't maybe step back and look at the catcalling and look at how we refer to each other as people?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I think the word he used was it's normalized, you know. So when we think something's not a problem, we don't tend to do anything about it. In fact, so as earlier, the ideas of as guys just growing up, how we sit in the locker rooms, how we talk, you know, how do you... So you're a guy's guy when you are able to sleep with the people, when you are able to... You almost have a body count, you know, the way we talk. So I think because it's normalized, not just in the streets and the WhatsApps, but you can't escape it, as you're describing, black families, white families across economical structures. So this thing, a person can't run away from it. In fact, Ilya, you mentioned the idea that I think it's the station manager. She said she's not sure that if she'll be able to get home safe. But I want to say, in fact, most people are attacked by people they know. So it's not even in the street where you are unsafe. It's the people you know. It's your father, it's your uncle, it's your brother. So it's more closer than we think, you know. And so part of what we have to think about is the modeling. When does somebody learn those things? Is it when a boy is in the womb? Is it when he's a child? Is it when he's a teen? Is it when he's in early adulthood, late adulthood? So we have to think about, but what is it that we do, these conversations that we have, what is it that we do as a society that lands up producing those kind of men? Because another word that was used was learning. We have to unlearn things. Where did we learn this? And then the follow-up question would be, then we stop it to become what? To do what? So where are the models? How do you behave properly? How does a proper man behave? And where are those examples? Because most people learn what to do by seeing. So if we don't have good role models, if we don't promote that, then I think what we are trying to fix, we're going to have a serious problem with that.
And I'll come back to some of these things that we learn, because I think, you know, you learn them in multiple and different stages in one's life. Mo Flava, I want to come to you, and then thereafter I'll come to some of the ladies, and I'd love to hear some of your reactions on what you're hearing here and whether or not that chimes in with, I guess, some of the conversations that you're having in different spaces. Mo?
Just something that PH alluded to, the whole thing about, you know, men are trash, and some men being touched about that. And I remember telling a very good friend of mine, I said, because he was saying, no, but I treat my woman right, I treat my daughter right. I said, it's not about what you do. It's about the pain and the anger, and that is how it's being reflected. So if men are trash, that is the manifestation of the anger and the reality thereof. And you cannot be touched about that.
And of course, Mo, you might not be trash to all of the people that are close to you, but somebody experiences
exactly.
you as trash.
Acknowledge the fact that men are responsible for a lot of the trashy behavior, instead of saying, no, but me in my space, I'm a good guy. That's not the argument. And it's also that level of thinking and that level of consciousness that we have to deal with. And in that moment, what do you say to that friend of yours who says, no, but I'm not trash? That's not the argument.
Also, the trashiness doesn't start by the physical things that you then do to your woman or to your child. The trashiness began in the WhatsApp group. It began when you're a child. It began when you behave. It's how you behave. It's how you hide someone that you know abuses a girl, that you know speaks in a derogatory fashion, there's no way, there's no man that can say that he's never been involved in some nuance.
Yeah, I know for
That's
sure.
really
For sure.
so. To claim that you're not trash, you are part of the problem because you don't see.
You're not acknowledging.
You
You need
not,
to appreciate
you don't see
the
how
realities,
the levels
sure.
have. You don't see how wrong you are. So you've kind of you've normalized your wrongness to say that no, when we are right because I'm shy or you haven't raped anyone. But how you spoke to your friends and how you entertained the conversation makes you as equal trash to someone
But
that
gents,
does those
I
things.
mean, I want your views on this just before we go to this break. A lot of people, I mean, if you take something like rape, for instance, a lot of people think rape is about sex. And I was saying to Tony a few days ago, rape is actually about power, right? It's about an exercise of power. And for me, there's always the question, and Mo, I want to hear your view on this. How do we subvert these power relationships so that these things don't happen, right? You're sitting in an auction couch. You're there as a woman. In all likelihood, the guy who exercises power over whether or not you're going to get that role, in many cases, is a man, right? Surely that speaks volumes about the kind of gender discrepancies. Demographically, there's more women in this country than men. And yet in all of the decision-making roles and roles of authority, it's always men. Should we not be making the noise, Mo, that says, actually, a starting point is to say, let's take decision-making power away from men so that we get to a much better outcome?
I think there's a lot we need to untangle. There's a lot we need to undo, uproot. There's a lot we need to dig out. And some of those things relate to those power dynamics you speak of. Just within a simple family setup, which between men and women are most important, which decisions matter the most. Yes, rabautla bomme impa arutla wana bontate banka qeto efeng. So it's all the decisions, for example, in a family setup that have to lie with men. And history will tell you about the role that women have played in society, and that the true power, in essence, actually lies there. And so I think there's a lot of untangling that we need to do. And there's a lot of teaching that needs to be done as well. And I say teaching just loosely because it needs to happen on many levels as well.
Let's pause there and take a break. When I come back, I want to hear from Lolo, Sisanda, and Mo. What do you guys make of, some of the conversation we've had now and some of the themes that are coming up? Because a lot of this socialization, I guess, is also about how we define and characterize gender roles in relation to decision-making, authority, influence, and power. You tuned into Metro FM Talk. I'd love to hear from you as well. Send through your tweets on @MetroFMSA. Give us a ring as well on 089 110 3377. Basic Education, in partnership with SABC Education, are celebrating Literacy Month by hosting the annual National Spelling Bee competition on the 21st of September 2019. The National Spelling Bee is aimed at improving learners' performance in languages, especially English. And this year, 27 spellers from grades 4 to 6 across the 9 provinces will battle it out to be a top 2019 national speller in this competition. SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives. It's It's our special broadcast here on Metro FM Talk, and we are uncoding or decoding, I should say, some of the locker room conversation or the bro code conversations that we often have as Amachita. I'm also joined by Osis Betu and to have this conversation here. And I'm joined by Lolo Saliso, national organizer at the Total Shutdown. Also joined by head of communications at Not In My Name, Mosen. And Sisanda Mbolekwa is also with us here. She's the SRC president at WITS. Now, Sisanda, I want to start with you. You would have certainly heard some of the views and I guess inputs that were made by some of our gentlemen here. And on campuses, I mean, as we started the show, I was saying this finds expression in every space, in newsrooms, in campuses, in boardrooms, all manner of places across our society. And I'm quite interested in the picture as it happens on campus. I mean, I remember a few years ago when I was at WITS, this was a massive issue. Even the setting up of the agenda office and the exit of many lecturers who had been found guilty for all manner of sexual harassment, assault, and all manner of other things. What's the picture now on campuses, and more importantly, some of your reactions to some of the inputs that have been made?
So, as a departure point, I think we forget that what happens on campus happens in society as well. We were members of society before we entered these campuses. Campuses are essentially a microcosm of society. So there's this notion that I noticed at WITS where we say we're recruiting the creme de la creme, the best of the best in the country. So obviously, as the country's hub of intelligence, might I say, you think that we are in a position where our men at WITS don't do this. Our men can't be perpetrators because you think that they know better. I mean, in politics, 101 classes, you learn about gender roles. Sociology will come and tell you that these things are wrong and we must stop this thing of saying that these are normalized behaviors and this is how you should act. And men have these conversations, they interact in class, and you think, okay, that comrade is very clear. And then you see that behind all of that progressive outlook or that progressive performance, there are muffled screams. And screams that do not just come from students, that come from fellow women who are trying to enter the space in academia, who come from the lady who cleans your room at res, who come from the lady who cooks for you at dining hall. That it's very problematic how we are trying to absolve ourselves from the crisis happening nationally, because it does happen on campus as well. And I think, yes, there are systems put in place to deal with issues of gender-based violence, such as the Gender Equity Office, but there are power structures at play as well. You might think that because the Gender Equity Office, the director is a woman, so therefore she's going to safeguard the rights of all women on campus. She has a boss, a line manager that she reports to, which is unfortunately not a woman. So you find that power structures are at play, gender roles are at play, and men on campus are just as guilty as the friends from Soshanguve that they come from.
Mo, in organizing spaces, we know it's there. You know, so tisamba sonke singama comrade, and we're picketing together, fighting a common cause. And then in the darkness of the night, when everybody's winding down, you hear all manner of other things happening behind the scenes. From the people that you would expect, as Sasanda is saying, to be the most progressive.
Yeah, that's true. And that's generally what I've been hearing while the men have been speaking. They kept referring to being a sister or a mother, and that doesn't have to be that way. And I'm going to refer to a theory that I was talking about just this week, the social learning theory. So it posits that behavior is most likely to happen when you punish it rather than when you keep reinforcing it or ignoring it. And even ignoring the behavior is part of reinforcement. So, wafika or no jita, you keep quiet, it's fine, it's normal. Until she goes and beats up your sister. And then, no, but I hit that other girl, you didn't say anything. Why is it different now when I've hit your sister? So you're reinforcing this and you're normalizing it. And then when it comes close to home, it's only now that you want to act when it should have been a normal response to dysfunctional behavior. And then I also heard something about accountability. So if you don't punish somebody or if you don't hold them accountable, you're letting them know that the sum total of their behavior is fine. And this means that they will keep perpetuating the cycle and repeating the same behaviors because it gets them exactly what they want when they want it. Nobody says anything. It means, oh, okay, cool. I'm going to walk away because nobody's doing anything. And he also spoke about modeling, that we need to have people who are modeling desired behavior because we learn vicariously. So if people we've placed in positions of power and authority are modeling the kind of behavior that is really held, that they're really held accountable for, people who are under them then start mimicking that. And Loena, as president or whoever, utshaba go ba kgalemela because you know you're guilty of the same thing. But press, Loena, you're doing that. And then what are you going to say? Nothing. Because you've been put there to model desired behavior. This is the behavior that you've modeled for them. They are mimicking you. They're imitating your behavior. What else do you expect?
Mo, when we talk about modeling of behaviors, I mean, I want us to also apply it to how we call each other out as machita. Ne? So if it happens to my sister, my first inclination or my first impulse is that into like beta chief. And even that, in my view, is certainly something that is not healthy, right? Because the issue we're talking about here is that even in instances where men have felt violated and have felt, their space is violated, it's also been done by other men. So how do we get to much healthier ways to punish, as you say, but to also ostracize and isolate some of the people who, I guess, we see as some of the elements that undertake this kind of behavior?
You were talking about accounts that have been created and releasing people's names out. So the basic requirements that we send out when somebody reports a case, that we want a case number. If the police do not want to press charges and give you stories, we'll help you do that. We want the investigating officer's number. We want, if the perpetrator is known to you, we'd love the number to get a right of reply. There's also a clause that says if we find that your story is a fabrication of the truth or you're lying in any form, then now we are proceeding with legal action against you. So when we start calling people out, like I get the necessity for that because there are all sorts of talks that victims are the ones whose names always circulating, but the perpetrator's name is never there. But we also need to consider that the legal system that we're working with will literally just discard your case on a technical matter. The fact that wherever on social media can discredit your whole case. No, but you didn't stick to this and this clause. We admit that he did this and this, but Luena, you didn't stick to the end of the deal, so it's out. So I think we need to go about it with the way that things work right now while we're trying to change the way that things work, because you can't change the rules if you don't know what the rules are. It's very difficult to do that. So you need to understand your context, the message that you're trying to get out, verify. Be sure of what you're saying before you talk about it, because the next thing, you're getting sued, you're losing stuff. Mangwang is complicated, and then you end up forgetting what the core problem is or the basic premise of your argument is.
Cool. Let's pause there for a second. We need to head to a break. When we come back, Lolo, I'm going to bring you into our conversation. And also, I guess, get some of the views. I've been hearing a lot of and we'll certainly take some of those views on the other side. I'd love to hear from you as well. Give me a ring on 089 110 3377. We'll take a look at some of those tweets and the calls that are coming through on the other side of this break. this evening. I've got a round table here with me. We're having a conversation about all of our locker room chats and the bro code, and taking a look just briefly at some of your tweets before I get back to my round table here. Miss D on Twitter saying, if all men in South Africa can behave and have the mentality of the men in studio right now, South Africa will be a better place. Thank you to the team you have there, and thank you for tonight. We hope it'll have a great impact. Spav Talks saying, truth be told, what you're doing there should be happening in our parliament right now. Tired of committees that don't get in touch with the people at a ground level. We'll mobilize such discussion campaigns in our communities to stand up against the GBV. Now, one of our listeners here as well, Mlu Sterone, Mlu saying the Mhlega is the foundation of any society is in the family. In black society, fathers are not there, no role models, no one for these boys to fear. And what are we treating now are just symptoms. Lolo, should we be instilling fear, mortal fear in young boys, that if you put a hand on Umdong Mama, then, hell will rain on you?
I don't think we should be instilling fear in young boys. That's absolutely wrong. It's good to hear the men in the room talking about, acknowledging what they're doing wrong. But I still feel like we're scraping on the surface. We really need to look at the system that actually makes men the way they are. For example, we always say that patriarchy is to women what whiteness is to blackness, right? The system they're in. So you need to look at the root of it all. You must understand the system that you are cushioned in that makes you so privileged in order for you to understand why I'm able to disrespect my mom or the next woman.
And not just the micro incidences,
Yeah, so we need to look at it much, much deeper. I know a lot of men as well also blame, how we have a violent history. Yes, we acknowledge that, but where are we now, right? You spoke about unlearning. We need to unlearn. The perpetrators are becoming younger. They're in high school. So are you going to blame apartheid on that? These are born frees, right? So we need to really look at ourselves, right, as a people. But also men need to start talking about the root of the cushion that cushions them, which is patriarchy. And then you can start dissecting, how do I then decode culture, because it's also toxic? How do I decode religion, because there's also toxic elements to religion? And how do you decode the entertainment industry for you to be able to have, be decent human beings in social spaces as men? And for me, that's really what I think men need to start talking about, is first your root.
And when you talk about that, I mean, it seems like such a superstructure, right? Because the same set of attitudes, same set of mannerisms and sort of communicated, uncommunicated behaviors find expression, as you say, in the schools, in the boardrooms, in the audition couches, in the newsrooms, everywhere, on stages across our society, on campuses as well. Where does this start? Where do we have the baseline conversation that allows us to say, let's look at the systemic drivers? I mean, earlier on you were talking about it's one thing to do the activism. It's one thing to go on the streets and picket. But Sasanda was also saying that at some point you also need to go and do the policy work, the systemic and the system changing kind of work.
That's why I think a lot of people, when they talk about what's the solution to GBV, we always think there's always going to be this one thing that should happen. And even when we're calling for people to come to the table, we're not only calling for men to come to the table.
Sure.
We call for government to come to the table, for corporate, for civil society, for citizens, like ordinary people in the community, to come to the table. So it won't only be happening from, just government changing policies, but everybody needs to play their role in making this country a better place, Listen, for me, it's really a dynamic thing. And right now, if you look at social media, we had the name and shame, right, that was going on. And it really, for me, I've always wanted a name and shame, by the way, where women can actually name, because I feel that by us not naming, we're protecting perpetrators. Imagine if I knew, for example, that that you were a perpetrator right before. I would know that not to go to you. That's why we're even calling in our 24 demands. We want the sexual offenders registry to be open to the people. So I'm able to, you propose to me, I can look you up and look at what you've been up to in the past and so forth. So a lot of things need to start playing out. Policies need to be implemented and stop gathering dust in order for us to start changing things in our society.
That's the problem. You do it knowingly.
with such impunity.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm with her. City must back was list, and obviously Mo had a counter argument, which is also very fair. You know? But at the end of the day, Majida Wiki, it was like Asuga. It'll be buried tomorrow, or it'll be a thing of the past next week.
And can I just add to that? The reason why men are not afraid is because there are no consequences for their actions.
Yeah.
So when you know, I'm going to go to jail tomorrow and come out the next day, I'm going to get Bani to, get rid of my docket, or I'm going to escape because the justice system is so pro-perpetrator than the victim, then I can get away with it.
Yes.
And that's what enables men to continue perpetrating.
Yeah. Also, another thing, she touched on it, we're very privileged as a Majid. And most men don't realize the privilege that we have. How I can compare it is like how we say white people had a head start in life, and only then do you say, okay, then you realize, oh no, then you start defending it. But men are privileged, men are yiki, and that's the biggest problem.
And PH, the only time as men we think about rape as an invasive experience and a sort of a violent experience is when we think about the prospect of jail.
Yeah,
right.
Women
every single day of their lives.
I was
leading
to that because once you say Tumjita, so when you pop into jail, you know what happens, right? Like, you become it's like, that's how women feel every day, and that's the scary part is that you have to make such an extreme example, for someone to realize, okay.
Let me. Talking about jail, and I hate for this to be the worst introduction for you, Pramtibana, but you just joined us. Themba Lukele is an author, speaker, businessman, and also a ex-convict as well. And I'm quite interested. We've been talking about consequence on the one hand and punishment, and you've had your own experience of the criminal justice system and how it responds to some of these issues around GBV. Just let us in on that, and maybe briefly you can also share your story and some of the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you kindly, man. Greeting everyone. As into it, it's really sad because all the time, because I'm motivating half the time. Whatever ends up there's a law of karma and the law of retribution, and they are very real among us. It doesn't matter whether it takes 10, 20, or 30 years. Time is not of your sense. And once you get to prison, a prison is more dangerous than the battlefield. Or anything, but actually you can die anytime. So now, UPHS, I should at times, I want to instill that fear so that they get a better understanding. If I may share a story, sometimes we it's out of that sense of belonging, and just because there's a few for the people, it's now in life. Story so I spend considerable amounts of money on my partner and also the family. So now I built the empire and around them they live in the family livelihood and all of that. Now time elapsed and she began devious on me. And I see the empire that I built for myself. It was toppling and crashing before my eyes. And now here is this guy ending it out here. And I said to myself, no man, and about pressure with this scheme. I mean, you're a typical township boy. You've been there, done that on the streets, and when we know exactly what if we say general Estratin, and all of a sudden now it's a sending story. Can we rather be equal to the task in Chan? If you don't execute, and then will do it. So, I succumb to pressure, and all the time I say, when I think about the things that I've done, they make me leave my head hanging in shame. And I made some serious irrational decisions, and then really out, and I found myself in the most hopeless of places. Then I realized, Tanyan is not for the small CCs. It's not small feet. Once you become an inmate or an offender, and now you understand freedom, what does freedom mean? So at times there's into some out because of peer pressure and all of that. And stand to justify. And if flopeli road is some out, all the time, you play a victim. Once you're the perpetrator, but you are playing now a victim because systems biases. And now I'll send a chance you go to Mapindu and all the time I come to figure I accept and say I accept my flaws and I'm moving on with the clear conscience now. I've accepted a reality. And half the time I get figure court at riding. And magistrate ufika khulume nawo so kunento ekhona I mean kwiloyethe South African provision abayenzile And then it says you must be proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So leanto, it's a very curveball, dicey situation. Nobody knows. If you've got strong lawyers, it simply means you can get away with murder. So that's the problem. And only to find with the victim, and ukwenza crime ukhona ukumosha impilo zabantu ngento encane oyichunile wena nje oyichune manje because you wanted to enrich yourself or anything that's stupid. So now when you get to prison, you told them out. Yesterday, I'm doing my documentary. We were inside nama cameras. Abantu engibashare they busy singing the same song. Ukuthi no man bangipayisile. Mean I did not do this. And Mowen's study when we were there, I was a chairperson of the biggest organization in prison. Half the time people they say I did not do it. Until as I the sentence, they do not accept flaws. So I had to accept the reality, and I said to myself, let me accept all the things as negative, as positive, and we must understand the enemy of our faith is a specialist on condemnation. Abanbazo condemn. Society does not owe us anything. We owe it to ourselves to live and lead an honest life. Perelada.
Kai, let me bring you here, man. Let me bring you in here. Churches, right? We expect inkonzo zethu to be safe spaces. We have seen videos of omama bebhathi abanxiba into ezibomvu that are complaining about amadoda enkonzweni. What's happening?
I think we forget that church exists within a community. I always say that the biggest institutionalized hospital is a church. That's the biggest hospital you'll ever find. They are the most broken people, the most challenged people that have to put on a facade and act like they are Deputy Jesus Christ and they've got it all together. And that's where the problem is first. The hypocrisy that's in our churches leads to the place where people can live lives that are dishonest, lives that are abusive. I've dealt with pastors that have abused their wives. I've dealt with leaders and community leaders in our churches that have perpetrated. And sometimes, because the other thing that before abuse is sexual, like why are you shouting it? I had to call cops in my complex when my neighbors were screaming and shouting at each other, because I felt that this is above. It's just normal. It's not normal anymore. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like we've become okay to even let those things go. You know, like emotional abuse. My wife likes to say that married men cheating on their wives is abuse. You know what I mean? And she's always hammering that in my head to say that you must talk about that, because we are abusing our wives emotionally. We're abusing our wives in breaking our marriage vows. And so there's a lot that's happening in our churches.
How much of that comes from the culture and maybe at times the doctrinal interpretation of religion, right? That comes with this viewpoint that says women are subordinate to men, right? There's this thing about ngumkam, as if it's, you know, this person's my commodity, my possession. How much of that contributes to some of the things that we're talking about?
I think you're 100% right, because there is a nuance to say that what a woman that's next to you within the context of marriage, she then becomes below or inferior to the man, to the superiority of the man, and that's wrong, because that's biblically incorrect. For instance, when Scripture refers to us, there is no gender in Scripture. When Scripture refers to man and woman and speaks to us as spirits, there is no gender to that. Interesting enough, last week Sunday, I spoke about gender-based violence on my pulpit for a good an hour. That was my sermon, you know, to say that we're not going to harbor abusers in this church. We're not going to harbor behavior abnormal and then treat it in Scripture so that God will forgive. Women must learn to forgive. That's rubbish. We're not going to be part of that kind of conversation by a mile. Scripture is very clear in the book of Exodus that God treats sexual assault as equal to murder. Scripture is very clear about that. So we cannot turn a blind eye as the church, and the church has turned a blind eye and said people need counseling, yet people need the courts. Yet people need to be taken into account. People need to be locked up. I told people in my church that you'll serve God in prison. You'll be an evangelist in prison. Yeah. You'll be called to win souls in prison, and you will get to heaven from prison. You know what I mean? It will all happen from the place of prison. And we need to have those conversations in our churches and be honest, and not to scare but to create a stance
Yeah.
to say that our churches are not going to be the places where a playground where we're going to play around those games. Not
And you
around
know,
playground.
some of this stuff is even at times cultural. I mean, somebody was saying to me, you know, when the tweet came out about this conversation, Nangam Sokosa, she said to me, please raise this thing of Nina, especially you Xhosa guys. That's Pumendabin. And there's this idea that, hey, you know, you must clean your mbola or whatever, and you need someone to lay with for that. So I was like, Lord, Mo, you wanted to say something? Man?
I think one of the issues as well is the fact that women protect each other, and that is a big problem. So, you know, I have a boss, I know he's up to no good. I've got a business partner, I know he's up to no good. I've got a guy that I respect in whatever space, or he's moneyed, he's my put on, he's the guy who's got all the keys.
Plug.
He's my plug, and we protect them. You know, simply by not saying anything when you know what's going on, in my view, is just tantamount to that. And the problem is we're too worried about our relationships. If I call him out, you know, I'm going to lose out on these trips to Dubai, or I'm going to lose out on deals. I'm going to lose out on gigs, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, you know, some men find themselves in that situation. We find ourselves in that situation, and we don't have the presence of mind to think of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And I guess conversations like these make people think more and more about something, and eventually something will hit home. You can't keep quiet when you know there's this billionaire guy or millionaire guy who beats his women every single day, and he's your buddy. And it's okay, and you're taking snaps on Instagram, and you're out here
For
balling.
the culture.
But we know that back at the ranch, you know, it's a different story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it's important for us to rise to that. You know, and I think also the question is, what are we as men prepared to do and sacrifice in order to protect our women? If I'm not prepared to sacrifice a relationship, then I'm not ready for the fight. It's as simple as that.
And you know, I guess what you're touching on, we're going to have to take a brief break now, and we'll get to some of the views. And I don't know, some of the guys will have to tell me if we've got any calls coming through. But it speaks to even how some of the men, when you speak about some of these power relationships, they also affect men. We like to think that this is just something that affects abantu abangosisi. Patriarchy is better nathi. Some of this misogyny also applies to us, and I think it's very important for us to be able to at least highlight and ventilate that and draw attention to that. Let's take this brief break. On the other side, PH Nzawuzakuwe, I saw you were quite incensed with that comment I made earlier on. I'll hear your view on that. This one, we're with you all the way right up until 10 p.m. Anonymous, good evening to you.
Good evening, Abang. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Listen, Puti, this night is my first night. Ngaphandle endlini kwami, the place that I always call home.
Kwenzeke ntoni bhuti?
Kwenzeke into yoba mna I decided that I move out because mna and my woman have been having, it's been going for some time now. A few differences within this Chile. But now what I want to know is, I've been hearing, I've actually been listening to a conversation here. And we have certain expectations when you get married. Now these things, at times, that is. And yeah.
See expectations ezinjani Anonymous maybe usicacisela abanye bethu asitshadanga thina. See expectations ezinjani?
While ndithethe nomntakwethu and ndilindele into yoba unkosikazi wami abe njengomama. You understand?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I grew up in that environment, and when I got married expecting into yoba unkosikazi wami will be the way that my mother was to my father. But now, I'm a
Yeah. Ish, Anonymous. Yeah. No, we'll definitely touch on that, Anonymous, and I really thank you for sharing that difficult story in the you're certainly moved by, I guess, the occurrences there, and I certainly hope you and yours will be safe this evening. Tabang, just a brief one there before we take our second caller, Mike, there. Your quick response to Anonymous.
Yeah, I think the point he made, he had these certain expectations, and I think sometimes that's why we get in trouble. We think that things that we have in our heads, that's what the other person has. So, I mean, it brings around the issues of consent. And if people don't sit and discuss what's good for us, what is it that we both want in relationships, because we have to define it for us. We assume that what we think, that's what the other person thinks. So I think it's more helpful to actually discuss those things in the beginning. What's okay, what's not, what are your expectations before you make lifelong commitments.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And Anonymous, thank you for sharing your story. Let me take Mike's call here, and I want us to return after that as a roundtable to this institution of marriage and some of the implicit and explicit expectations that are fed into that process at the start. Mike, good evening to you.
Good evening, Aya, and to your team and your listeners.
Awesome, man.
My comment is quite simple. I think most of the options that are put on the table are more touching to the symptoms, but we are not looking at the root cause. This matter should not be about men and then them, women. We need to address these issues as a community, men and women all together, where men will protect women and women will protect men. And I think that is a starting point, because most of the alternative or options that are on the table are more punitive than where we prepare our young men to be real men, where we prepare them to protect their siblings, their sisters, their friends, and all those. It is only then that we will see the end of the road for this gender-based violence. Up until we get there, we will continue having a cycle, because those who will take to jail now will have their children who will be going to jail, and the children of those one's children who will be going. So we need to sit around the table and look at the root causes. What are the root causes? I'm a lecturer, and I had a class on Monday where we opened 30 minutes of our session to discuss these issues. You will be amazed of what young men and young women were talking. They were talking about issues of patriarchy, lack of self-confidence, culture, and many other issues. Can we go back to the drawing board and raise our children and in stable homes, and society to look after its offspring? From there, we will be preparing for the future. And we will have less of these issues.
Mike.
So I think now everybody is beating around the bush. Parliament, all we are talking about punitive measures, but not awareness and preparing, educating the masses.
Mike, thank you very much for that call. And Mike, I guess, speaking here and saying we need to maybe go a bit deeper in this conversation. Mo, I want to bring you in here. I spoke earlier on, about one cultural element, which has its own misogynistic and very problematic elements to it. But if we take a look at the institution of marriage, at the starting point, when you onboarded as a makoti, one of the things they tell you, when this chap comes in, when PH comes in there at 2 a.m. in the morning, when PH is starting to give you problems there, don't manage your own expectations. Have as low a base of expectations as you can. And similarly with PH, there's already a parallel and alternative education he's getting. Leave aside the fact that they sit him down and they talk to him and they say all of the nice palatable stuff. There's a side conversation that says, hey, Baba, as a man, you must have, in addition to your wife, other people, all of these very problematic things. And when they play themselves out, we hear what we heard from Anonymous there. We hear him, you can hear that in his voice. And maybe we can even talk about some of the other expectations, that you're the head of the home, you must have the resources, you must provide. And then what happens? When a tough economy, you get retrenched. You're frustrated. And we couple up la frustration, we couple up umfazwa. How do we resolve some of those issues so that we have a different conversation even about institutions like marriage? And Muruti, I also want to hear you there because there is a marriage officer. Mo?
Well, okay. I feel that what happens in marriages, or what men typically expect, starts when they're still children. That's why I always advocate for boy-child programs, because you are empowering the girl child. You're telling her you can rule the world, you can do this and this and that. You don't have to do blah, blah, blah. If a man does this, she's well prepared for that. But then the boy child is still being taught traditional forms of behaving and patriarchy and misogyny. And when now we are with your big speaker to tell girls to stay away from boys, we need to coexist. I don't think that is a viable solution to say stay away from boys. Why not groom the boy child to be the kind of boy that can coexist with the woman once they have developed to that extent?
Yeah. I want us maybe to pause there, and I'll allow you to complete that point on the other side. We need to quickly take a spot break. So you'll complete your point when we come back, and Muruti
Sure.
will also get some of your views and some of the views of my roundtable members here. Division. The main purpose of the position is to develop and secure strategic and competitive positioning for the SABC3 channel, SABC Encore, and any other channel to be introduced under this bouquet. The successful candidate must ensure optimal delivery of programming, scheduling, marketing, audience growth, and the SABC's broadcast mandate. If you meet the following minimum requirements: a bachelor's degree in media or equivalent qualification, 6 years experience in broadcasting, of which 3 years should be in a management level, and also knowledge of the broadcasting regulations, then this role is for you. For full requirements, please visit our website on www.sabc.co.za, www.sabc.co.za. Closing date is the 13th of September. 6 minutes now it is before 9 p.m. We're with you all the way right through to 10 p.m. this evening for our special broadcast here. And we are talking about a locker room conversation and the bro code. And Mo, just before we went to the break, I had to cut you off there because I guess we had to go and pay some of the bills. But please complete the point you were making.
Okay, so what I was saying is that if we're going to have programs for children, we should also include the boy child because eventually they have to coexist. And then back to the topic of being socialized in such a way that you expect your woman to mimic your mother's behavior. There's an unproven theory about that, which is quite popular though in the psychology field, and that was about Freud. He spoke about the Oedipus complex, that at some point you develop some kind of romantic feelings towards your mother, but then you get to overcome that. But then neurosis develops when that developmental level is not properly accomplished. So now you want every woman in your life to be the same as your mom. And you'll see that even with these movies that they have with psychopaths, if the mother was dysfunctional and they want to express their repressed emotions, they will usually go for women who look like their mothers, who behave like their mothers, and be the perpetrators there. So that's why most of these things start and it's being, we sweep it under the carpet. In the boys will be boys. You let him get away with that, but then you punish the girl for the very same thing. And then what that does is that you're telling her in marriage, for instance, you know, I mustn't ask him and then he must restrict my movements. I must be happy that he's even back home. Is this a relationship? Am I a slave? Like, can we go back to the agreement? Because honestly, I did not sign up for this. So it's quite a multitude of factors. It goes even further to the point that people think you can't be raped in your own marriage. You don't understand consent to that extent. Because then you own me. No. Maybe let's revisit what lobola is in the first place, because once they've done that, you belong to him. You're going to be subordinate and subservient and submissive, and all these subs are very nice to say. But when you need to be the man who is worthy of that kind of submission, it's a problem.
Murut, I've got a tweet here from Uzina. She says, and she says in inverted commas, and that's where the issue starts when it comes to this institution of marriage. And I guess from what Mo is saying, there's an entire ecosystem of enablers here, right? Right through from the family. The moment he starts beating you, the first thing is not to go to the police station. The first thing is to say, can we take this thing to the parents? And then the parents also add a layer of enabling. And then Muruti comes here, he also adds his own layer and saying, no, must hand us in, and hopefully we'll pray the beatings away. Muruti.
Yo, that's a very tough one, because the issue of marriage and the issue of how broken our marriages are in society in South Africa, it's crazy. The divorce rate in this country is skyrocketing in a manner that you cannot believe. As Mo was rightfully saying, the consent of sexual abuse in marriage also is not a conversation that couples are having. And I believe that you are right, where we just layer these things and we backpedal them, and there's no direct issue to deal with it. Personally, one of the things I wanna address in terms of men, I believe that South African men have a lust problem. And we need to own to that we have a very, I don't know where we come from, the strong womanizing mind. And I'm looking, all the guys, I'm trying to look at them there, and I can see Mo is staring me dead in the eye, trying not to twitch.
Oh, but Umuruti, I must listen.
No, but
yeah, I must
I
listen.
want us to talk about this because the other issue is pornography. One of the biggest enablers to sexual abuse is pornography, and I was abused. I was introduced to pornography at the age of 9. And
no move.
Yeah, no, easy. And it was so easy the access to sexual content as a young boy is so easy, and it's the stimulus to become to rage, because when you're involved in pornography, you start with softcore, then you go into hardcore, then you start watching some crazy stuff from there, because you almost need to build that level to say that this is small stuff now, and I need more things. This is now small stuff. So the more you grow in that, the more your sexual appetite also is perpetrated beyond a normality. And if we don't address the issue of lust, if we don't address the issue of pornography amongst men, I'm telling you, because I'm now going to a root cause.
Even in these groups.
Yeah, one of the things that drove me to sex was pornography. Simple and straightforward. I didn't meet a girl I liked and I felt like, oh, I wish we could have sex. No, I wanted to see if I can do the things I saw on my computer screen. You know what I mean? That drove me to a sexual place. I wasn't driven by, oh, I'm so attracted to you. I wanted to see, can she do that? Can she do that? And whether we like it or not, that is a psychological bearing on our minds, on how we treat sex, on how we treat women, on how we view women as objects, because it comes from that place. And that's where I'm going to end up.
Yes. I just wanted to say, I'll be a little bit disagreeable, right?
Sure.
I think we must be careful of like simple answers, right? Because I think what we are dealing with is a very complex problem. So if we take for example, the issue of marriage, I think marriage is good. I sit with couples, and I think almost one of the best spaces you can raise a person is where a child sees how people model good behavior. In South Africa, we don't have that. Most people in South Africa are raised by not raised by the two people who were involved when they got birth. So if we are talking marriage, South Africa is not a good example to even talk about, to say, but what examples do we have? So I don't see how, we come from broken homes, and I don't see how people come from broken homes who grow up and be well-adjusted, intact individuals who are able to not abuse women. So one of the things I think we have to look at is that we have to look at how the family is structured. We're talking about pornography. If you look at the psychosexual development of a teen, teenagers are people who are also, they're exploring their sexuality. And the problem in the porn comes in where when you're supposed to have good examples, you don't. You go to porn. Then where somebody is objectified. Then you expect this partner that you have to do the things that actors are doing. The music we listen to is a music station, right? If we did an analysis of just the lyrical content of the songs that we hear, right? So we come from these families that are not properly set up, and the things that we are not, the things that people are exposed to are not really the right ones. So we have to think about that. But I would say marriage is good. Research says that, in fact, if a prisoner came from prison, right, and they had a family, they're more likely not to commit crime. Marriage hurts women generally, and I think we need to improve that. But in fact, a safer man is a man actually who's got something to live for. Because part of abusing women is people who don't have a purpose, something to live for, something to lose. When you have a lot of things...
But what about the ones who are there in corporate, wearing ties,
literally,
have families,
like
have all of the
they
things?
do. Okay, so maybe
what about those guys?
if I can, So I started by saying, remember, we must be careful of simple answers. So one of the callers called in and said, the solutions we have right now sort of are problematic. So this is the problem I have before I got married. I imagined, okay, men abuse women, right? And so I want to get married. So what it means is that I'm probably going to get married, and something's going to happen to me. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to abuse my wife, right? This is a thing I had in my head, right? Until I had people who showed me different examples. So what I want to say is, as we are busy discussing this, one of the temptations we have is to make everything bad. And psychologically, remember, whatever we are exposed to, that's what we repeat. Sure. So the messages, the content. If you tell a little boy, there was a case of a gentleman who raped. He was being convicted. His mom stood on the stand. He says, I know why my son raped, because I was raped and I had him, and I reminded him that he is a product of rape, and why should he behave better if he's useless, if he's got no purpose? I think we should hold boys and men to a higher standard. So we need to be careful with our language. Men are the problem, but what I'm trying to say is, but we must be careful with the example and what we tell people what they need to live up to. So we need those examples and models. Yeah.
Lola?
Okay, so 2 points I want to make. We're having this discussion to have solutions for today and tomorrow, right? So going back to Kaya's point about pornography and what influences people to become sexually violent and abusive, there's a topic that I think a lot of men avoid and don't talk about, the molestation of young boys. It's swept so under the carpet in the church, in culture, in our communities. I know of cases where a 6-year-old is a victim of grade 7 boys and the 6-year-old already has a victim. And that's how bad it is. And then we want to talk about grooming young boys and them having role models. Right now in the country, we're sitting with 62% of households being led by women. So when are we having the conversation about fathers who are deserting their children and not showing up? Yeah, we need to talk about that as well. So for me, when it comes to the whole issue that my brother here spoke about, that, people who abuse are useless, I'm sorry, but there's not a single abuser who's written on their forehead by a abuser, I'm a survivor of gender-based violence. My abuser twanged for days. He went to the best school, came from the best family. So
people that twang have everything to gain and nothing
no,
to lose.
But I'm just making an example. Like, he came from a good family, he was raised well and everything. Like, he got everything that he wanted, but he still managed to be abusive towards me, to a point where I had to play dead. So you can't say that it's only people who don't have a future or a purpose. There are men sitting in boardrooms, CEOs, and that's why we need to find a way to make the name and shame thing happen legally as well, because there are men who wear ties and go and preach, but akondo, they are abusive. So it's a psychological thing and not about not having a purpose, but you have deeper underlying issues which you need to deal with.
I'll come back, Tabang. I'll give you a point to respond. Susan?
For me, really, 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 for being honest with ourselves, we're here to have an honest conversation, yes, and I understand that. But for me, it just feels like we're moving away from the target point. All I'm hearing are different reasons of maybe this is why, maybe that's why. We must understand that we can never simplify the narrative. There are outliers in general. There are people who, like Usisi said, had a good upbringing, but still managed to be perpetrators. There are people who grew up witnessing a beautiful marriage, mom and dad around, present parents, but still turn around to be abusive towards their partners. So we cannot ever simplify the conversation and say this is why, that's why. At the same time, you must understand that you can only be or claim to be socialized until a certain level. Then your agency must kick in. You can't tell me it's because I'm beating my fellow classmate or stealing his pencil away from them because I was kicked when I was 2 years old. Awukwazi. Not at this point in time. That's how women are dying on the street when you're trying to find out psychologically, maybe when I was 6 months as a baby, this might have happened to me. We really can't. And understand that, yes, we are saying women or men rather, maybe this is what happened and we are absolving them of responsibility. When you look at gender roles and agency, no woman is allowed to say, because this happened to me, therefore that's how I behave. Women are held to a harsher standard. We're in a situation where women work twice as hard to be recognized as half as less. It's absurd. I've had my 17-year-old sister just last week protesting at her high school against gender-based violence. Do you now understand how our youth is being stripped away from us? Because every single generation of black children in this country, black women in particular, are turned into being activists. When I went to university, I didn't go to university because I wanted to shout Amandla. This is not the life I chose for myself. It is because I could no longer take the material conditions around me that everyone else saw as so normal. I wanted to join a music society, do fun stuff. But we can't. I'm at 22 years old and I'm filled with rage. I'm frustrated. I'm fearful. When I'm at my mother's age. We need to stop. We need to stop saying it's because of this, it's because of that. We need action.
Tabang, let me bring you in here for you to respond, and then we'll take a brief break, and I'll come back to some of the tweets, and also Timban, I see you there in the corner as well. Tabang?
Yeah, I actually agree, because for me, explanation is not excusing. It is wrong, but I think we'd be missing it if we didn't understand that part of what we are doing is something that will perpetuate. For example, we were talking about the idea of, we tell girls one thing, right? Boys are dropping out of school, right? They're dropping out of school. They are not being socialized properly. So we're going to have a problem if we don't think about how do we bring about a proper citizen. Do you grab them as an adult, and where does a human being have? You still have the same brain at 22 that you had as a child, and you can place trauma, in fact, in your mother's womb. So if things happen to your mom, or for example, if your father was abusing your mom when she was pregnant with you, that can have an impact on you because it has an effect on how your brain was doing that. It has an impact how whether you stay in school or drop out of university. So if we don't understand that, I think we're going to have a difficulty understanding. So I do agree that it is wrong where we are. It is wrong that women in this country get abused. It is not right, And I think, but when we are coming up with the solutions, we must be very careful of the temptation to simplify how we are answering. But we need to do better.
I don't think we're simplifying.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why I say that. I think what is happening here is that we're trying to look for the systemic rather than individual and micro level drivers of the phenomena that we see. Right? And many of the people that have contributed to this conversation are trying to say, across someone's life stage or life cycle, there are instances where these things are reinforced in our minds. It might be the porn you watch, it might be that conversation you hear, it might be, next door. It happens so frequently that it just becomes, okay, there'll still be lovey-dovey,
yes.
It's fine, let's keep it moving, right?
Agreed.
So I think, for me, the conversation is not really to simplify what is complex. It's to try and maybe understand the drivers of some of this phenomena. But I want us to pause there, and when we come back, Mo, I'm going to come back to you and hear your view, and Timbana, and I'm also going to bring in the other Mo here on my right-hand side to take a look at some of these issues. And I want us to maybe touch on, some of the psychosocial stuff. I've got a message coming through here from Sibongile saying, let's also talk about the far-reaching effects of psycho-emotional abuse, lying, infidelity, gaslighting, and in some cases people have never raised the finger on their partners, but have done all manner of psychological and mental harm. We'll return to some of those themes on the other side of this brief break. Also, give us a ring on 089 110 3377. We'd love to hear from you. So we're back, and I was saying just during the break now, and quickly had to be sort of pulled back into our conversation here. But also, machita money therapy is a thing, yes. Go and see those people and just talk, because we're not we're not in the habit of being able to communicate our own feelings, what we feel, how we experience those feelings, and in many cases how that bubbles over. And I'm not making excuses here. All of us have agency to make those decisions. But I'm saying a lot of the contributing factors are this inability to communicate. We can communicate about everything else, but when it comes to Windows it becomes a no-go area. Mo?
I want to go back to what he said about men are not afraid. This is the conversation that I've actually been trying to have about bail and a flight risk being part of the criteria. Why would they run away? Because nothing is going to happen. There is no punishment for that behavior. Like she was talking about the sexual offenders list to be available to the public. Those are things that we need to know. I had a friend who ended up going on a date with somebody who was out on bail for rape, like just a week before then. And then he did the same thing that he did to another girl, to somebody else. So it's like it's no more about, you're not reading it anymore on the news, you're not watching it on movies. It's something that's actually happening here, and you'll never really know gore mang ke mang. And this list that they're talking about, it didn't help. I mean, go post office, they ended up just hiring somebody in the exista. So they're all pretty papers and documents and strategies that are available, but nobody is implementing. We will, and it doesn't help.
Sure.
So if you're going to now give people bail on the basis ya gore we are still investigating, mara should a woman react ka self-defense, you are there quick in a hurry, you're going to arrest her, and kurale batle go itse her side of the story. But I feel like men, they're not privileged in that way. In nabo wena rileng, he wouldn't do that. Ha man kitsi daimane kuriano, it becomes this nice story le rona ba re sa go itseng re thoma go nagana or no ba mo soyela daimane. But when it comes to the girls, like you're saying now about gaslighting, we ra motho nkare ke tsenwa. And once you dub somebody insane, any protest to the contrary only validates the claim. So whatever you do after that, I already know it's part of her insanity. So Moto knows all the buttons that they need to push. Perpetrators don't just it's a whole system where they now start systematically erasing who you are and putting this kind of person that they want you to be. They know your buttons, they know how to push it, and then it's like to a point where you're tired of it. Now you want to start talking about it. He goes back to all those things that he tried to erase Kawena, and then puts on this show for everybody else. Utlo sendela text is saying something that he knows is going to trigger you. Anything you say after that, I mean, obviously you're saying weird things about me, and you expect somebody not to react. So now you can't even react. You can't even talk about it. Just because, well, you're a woman, there must have been something that you did. What were you wearing? Mama, there's always something when it comes to the woman. Marabana. Like he said, you protect each other, and I think that's why things need to start in your immediate environment before utamaya wilo machetsa parliament thing. Start with your friends, because it's impossible.
Okay, from one mode to the other, Pramtiman, I'll come back to you on the other one. This issue of, I guess, the non-physical forms of abuse. It's very difficult to go to a charge office and say, hey, this person was gaslighting me, or this person's lied to me, and it's had this kind of psychological impact on me, or this person has not been truthful to me. There's been cases of infidelity which has had this kind of psychological harm on my own psyche and character.
I think it goes without saying that stuff happens. The abuse happens in different ways and forms, and that's well documented. The issue is partly how we as men handle our emotions, how we respond to certain things that we don't agree with or we don't like. And part of the problem is that we don't talk about some of the things we feel. Simple thing like telling your boy child, there's nothing wrong with crying, I feel. For whatever the reason is, whether you're happy or sad or disappointed in whatever the situation is. And just the other day, I was looking at the issue of suicide and how in South Africa it's the men who sit with that problem in the majority, and that kind of paints a picture of partly to some extent what is going on with us as Machita. And then you have examples where you're in a relationship as a guy and your woman cheats on you, and all of a sudden all the guys are like laughing at you, and now you are less of a person. And when in actual fact, it could be that you're not a very good partner. And maybe the lady moved on with no tact. That's not the point. The fact is, it doesn't give you the reason now to go and abuse her, either physically, verbally, psychologically, whatever the case may be. There are women who sit in relationships who are accused of cheating on their partners, and the guy uses that as a reason to hound her. And that becomes a form of abuse. And sometimes women get sucked into this thing of having to explain themselves over and over again, and we set them up that way as men, and it just goes to show that at times we don't know how to handle ourselves internally. Ofe, we're talking about going to see someone. Go see someone, whoever that is entirely up to you, but it can go a long way. And don't just see someone when things are bad. even
When
when
it's good,
when things are okay, to make sense of what is happening inside of you. Often it's like when you consult with your ancestors, only when things are bad. Hey, no, sometimes do it when things are good. But I think, more to the point, we need to be able to connect with our inner selves as men. Otherwise, we'll have an even bigger problem, as we already do.
Yeah. Timban.
My brother, Yasmin, I just see anger written all over, the conversation as now. Because, Mangse Tanyane, I read a whole lot of books, including Prophetess Juanita Pena. In her book, she says, when you harbor bitterness, it will get into your belly and it will tear you apart. So, Sister Ruth, let us not dilly-dally or tiptoe around the issue. Let us go straight to the point. Unfortunately, this thing is not cut right. If we had a solution, so that is why we are still trying to check the revolution. Let us pick up a new direction and start working towards that way. And the two out, but it is very important for you to be wired differently. And then the way I make excuse is pan. Pastor Solimatang, when he gave his testimony as a stage, my mother was raped, and Rachel Mundo Tengsa is a hooker. And immediately after that, that gave birth to what you see today. My excuses. He's saying I'm taking responsibility and I'm taking action. You will never change your past. We can only change and influence the future. I so wish South Africa. Realize. When I got to prison, I realized when I was looking at the guys and the faces, nama tattoos, anger is written. Their eyes are burning with anger. And those people, no, men was wrongfully accused. And all the time, we want to shift a blame. And we will never come to a place of complete peace, or of a complete understanding. Because all the time, you want to pass on, and then so every time we are justifying, we're explaining. So the most important thing, let us take responsibility and take action. I know it's not simple. Even with women, with ladies, I'm out at no. You are actually selling yourselves short, in so many ways. And on the contrary, somebody else comes and say, no. I go and because we need to be free. When I had a situation, I went to my gogo, my granny. Granny was with other two grannies there. And then they were saying, Temba, hey, it's so sad. It's a sad ending story. We see your life taking a nosedive or going south. But where do we go from here? And then the other granny said, Temba, a new broom sweeps clean. I was listening to my gogo. I was taking a back. And then the other one said, Temba, there's no way. Better the devil that you know. So, which one is which? So that is why I'm saying sometimes it will be a sad ending story until you understand yourself. So I had to say, when I left prison, I said, I'm going to revolutionize. I'm going to make sure that I speak about my past.
Okay. Timara, let's pause there. We need to take another break. When we come back, and PH, I'm going to come to you. I want us to take a look at this issue of consent. And we'll also speak to some of the guys from the world of law.
Recently learned, but realized what coercing is. Lando siqhelileyo thina ba soyifaka kancane let me just put the tip in, you know. That's trying to coerce. Like that's trying to convince someone who's technically
Sorry. Why Dlali Ed? Hey PH. You know says akakhe nayo bro.
Should I stop? What's that? Oh, yeah. Team or whatever. Then we obviously graduate into now the bedroom, and now we're naked, you know. And just because she's naked when here, she can change your mind, but because we're na, and slowly coerce and convince her, you know. So I think those are the things we also need to unlearn. My word for the year is unlearn. As much as there's any other words, there's also unlearning, you know. Consent. I saw some video during the week of it's like tea. No? You come to my house, I ask you, do you want tea? You say yes, I make you the tea, that's good. You come to my house drunk or tired, while I'm making the tea for you, right, you fall asleep. Ne? Just because you've fallen asleep does not mean now I can still make you, I can put the tea on the side and you can have it in the morning, you know what I'm saying? But I can also, and then there's many instances of what consent is, because I can say yes now. During the experience, I say no. It means you must stop. Before the experience, if I say no, stop. You know, no is a no. But there's also, and we had this conversation online. Call la no that, and I'm not saying it's right. No, man, don't. You know, and it's like. We've known it as slight encouragement to share more.
Pause the PH. Kaya, Mutata, I don't know who you are now.
Wait,
I don't know who you are.
Don't copy on
locker room, Tata.
Don't copy wrong.
No, I think PH is speaking about something that it's a real thing.
Yes.
Whatever is talking, what he's saying is just being honest. I feel like when a man hears no, it does not register, because he's heard no so many times, but it was a no yes. You know what I mean? It was a yes no. It was a no but yes no.
But yes. So if she says okay, put it hard, and you're gonna go and tell the cheetahs.
That's another true factor. Yeah. And by me saying this no yes, I'm not saying when someone says no, because you know a no, this is a no. But there's a no that was a more come. Finish. But there's a no that's an underline. That's got an underlining play. Yeah. That has got an underlining sensuality to it. That adds to that is deemed to the experience, so to speak. Yeah, one short.
And I think also, let's take perhaps the position that men don't know what no is, and I don't necessarily think it's true. So no is no, and that's black and white. So we put that aside. I think it's important also because people, PH was talking about learning, and some of these things are things, we men are told. The stories you hear when your older brother's talking to his friends. Yeah, first she said no, but I could see she wanted it. And I think it's important to also, from the women's perspective, communicate, and I think both ways in terms of the language and the references and the communication. What does what mean?
Sure.
So maybe to some extent, and not on the base, no means no, and I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
But what about the other types of communication? What do those mean? If a woman says no but she's smiling, there's a guy out there who will legit take that as she's actually saying yes because there's a smile. You understand? So what does that mean? And I think that needs to be a conversation that needs to be both between men and women, so we understand each other as well.
Guys, I want us to pause here for a second because, as you would have heard earlier on with the anonymous call that we got, a lot of people are really moved by the conversation that we are having here. And the one gentleman was so moved that he decided to drive here to Auckland Park. And he's chosen to be anonymous, and he's joined us here in studio. And PH, microphone there. Mhlekazwam, good evening to you.
Good evening.
How are you, sir?
I'm okay. I'm all right.
I understand you'd like to share your story with us, and you've certainly, in the conversation here, realized the conduct shugumisile, and you wanna reach out for help.
Yeah. I want help. The bottom line is, I want help.
Take your time.
Relationship-wise, I have been battling with abusing, basically. I would be fine, and then the next, after 5 minutes, then it would be like I have a split personality. I'll blame. I'll threaten. I'll create something out of nothing to blame the person who I'm in a relationship with. That has been happening for the past, this is my 5th relationship, which just ended recently. I'm talking about weeks here.
So this is emotional abuse.
I went as far as taking a gun, her gun. She trusted me. I took a gun from the safe. I breached the gun. The next thing, I gave it back to her. I cried.
What is going through your mind during that moment? What were you going to do with the gun?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And all I know is I need help. Because it can't carry on. I'm still young. I can't carry on like this. I can't keep on blaming others for my mistakes. I can't keep on blaming other people for what I've created. I would love to, it's a pity, maybe this platform, if I can be allowed, I think it's high time that we don't remain anonymous as I'm doing now. I wish I could tell the world that who I am, but yeah, I need help. I need help.
Buti, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And I guess the courage with which you even came and decided to drive here to come and share your story. Really, really commend that. Lolo, also one would argue, and many people have started to argue here on Twitter, that we need more spaces like this, where people can come and say, Yazindoni, I recognize that I have, with a certain amount of agency, gone to fetch that gun and realize that it's wrong. And now I want help, and I'm reaching out for help. Where does the help come from? Where are some of the spaces where people can get that help?
Okay, that was, yeah. But for Ubodi, I think it's a huge step to start off by acknowledging and taking responsibility for your action. Because a lot of abusers or perpetrators always stay in denial. There's nothing wrong with me. It's always your fault as the victim. So you taking the step to acknowledge that you've got a problem and you need help, that's where you're going to start, getting through it. I think earlier on, you guys did say you need to go to therapy. Men need to start, especially black men, need to start learning to go to therapy because there are underlying issues or ngogomdala, but you need to deal with those. So I think acknowledging and taking the step to get help and saying I do need help would be the first step, because you need to go there and talk about the underlying things and deal with your demons in order for you. That's why I always tell women who are in abusive relationship that no matter, even if you a meal on a golden plate, if it causes one rice he will find something to beat you up about. It's not about Ella Kozole rice, it's about him and his demons. So a lot of them don't go and get help. I mean, my abuser is still abusing his current girlfriend right now. So it's a huge step for somebody to even come on a platform like this and say, I've got a problem, I need help. There are psychologists out there. We can talk. I can give you some context where you can reach out to go and talk to somebody.
Sure.
But you need to do that. You need to talk to somebody and deal and face your demons. It's not an easy road. You need to be committed to it if you really want to be healed. And it's a great step to acknowledge.
Thabang?
I think it's quite a powerful thing that he's done, and I think we need more like this. I'm also very interested in what about the conversation made him want to come and drive all the way here.
Yeah, pose the question to the brother. Right?
Yes. So what is it that you heard that made you, or what is it about tonight that made you just want to come here and just share your story?
Sometime, I think, I'm not sure if it's this week or last week, I was listening to the Drive show. Spectacular and other guy were talking about something similar to that. I did call in, but unfortunately they said they're going to call me back. Then I could not. I think there was somebody that was in that show at that particular time. You were talking about the conversations which you guys were having. Yeah, you were talking to me while I'm driving. I had to ask myself lots of questions. One, do I want to remain where I'm at, or do I want to get help? So I had those questions. Deep down in my heart, I'm not like that. I'm not the person that I've became. Hence, even my ex-girlfriend, the recent one, kept on saying, look, you need help. She went as far as calling her boss. She's a police officer. And then her boss intervened by calling me recently. We met, we had a conversation. But still, directly after that, I did the very same thing.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think what he's doing, I think that's good. What I just want to say to him is, I think it's a wonderful thing that you've done. I think therapy will definitely help. I also want to add to stick to it, right? Because you came all the way here, you started something, but it's a beginning, and I hope more men are able to do that, because normally men seek for therapy because just a woman would have pushed him. No man really just rocks up. If you ask why you here, my wife said, or my partner said, if it wasn't. And so we thank women who've done that. But so more to you, I think you started something, and I think continue with it until you get to the end. That don't quit halfway. But wonderful that you came here, and I hope other people will take an example from you.
Okay.
I think it's wrong for us to say he must just keep it. It's our responsibility to make sure that he keeps it.
Yeah, I don't mind helping him if he's also interested.
Yeah, I think I want to commit to that, and whoever other gentleman that's here outside of radio, outside of who's hearing us, to say that we want to walk that process with you, because I mean, since we've lived so long to enable other people to live in this. You know, I've got friends that I know they did, so I've enabled and I've lived with them so long. Why can't I enable someone to get help? Yeah. And I feel like that's the direction we need to kind of start moving towards. If someone stands up and says, listen, I've got a problem, let's not just say, hey, go for it, hey, man, we've got your back. Let's walk with him. Let's go to the therapy with him. Let's sit there while he's in the room and wait for him and give that support so that he has someone he's walking life with, because there is no way that we can joke here. If he lives here alone, there's no way he's gonna stay to it. That, and he doesn't have, already now we know that he doesn't have a support system around him that will help him to stick to the decisions that we make. So I want to make a commitment, and whoever else that you trust in this room that you believe can walk this road with you, I believe it's important, apart from radio, apart from just from man to man and from life to life, so that we sit here a year from now and you come on as a guest to say that you have walked this road with one of us and this is who you are today.
Sure. Timber, I want to bring you in then, because I think what Kaya is raising is a crucial point. That if we don't make it normal, SG10, to come through and have the courage that my brother has had to say, yes, and I need help. Yeah. We normalize unifying around so many things. I mean, we unify around Kaiser Chiefs, but we're not even willing to unify around life or death matters like something like this. How do we overcome that?
ngizobuyela via emuva, man. Let's comment the brother. You know, we always say the sign of failure is denial. So the first step, mawufuna ukuthi ube grand, you must accept ukuthi kune problem. Then we'll be able to assist or help you. You know, and one thing, as into a church, we take it light. And I want to challenge somebody, Ukaya, and I will be my witness. You know, our God is not a respecter of men, but our God is a respecter of his principle. The book of Romans 8:26, it says, whoever the Son sets free shall be free indeed. If you want to be free, asondele any chance, let's accept our flaws and then see any reality and so as we just move freely. Otherwise, we would never ever be free if ever we don't have abantu abafana naye uBhuti. So we need to support him from here to Jerusalem and making sure that at least we don't just speak nje, because sometimes we talk about these things and then but now the formal statement, if you speak to a man and then in a language mhlambe ayizwayo nje, that will go into his head, but if you speak to him in his language, that will go into his heart. So I so wish we could speak to his heart. Makahle kube heart to heart. You know, we must act like candles. A candle does not lose light by giving light to another candle. And the candle line trick yalo, it burns itself while it help thina ngokuthi lislight. So my brother, to God be the glory for what he has done in your life.
Bella on Twitter saying, I commend Anonza for coming through and sharing his struggles with us and actually acknowledging his actions. Most men don't do that. I pray he gets help, finds, and he seeks God's face and accepts Christ as his Lord and Savior. Thank you, Anonza. Muteng Mukwena, kudos to the guy who came to ask for help. It's a step in fixing the issue, and this is great. And a few tweets here coming through on consent. Muteng saying there's no such thing as a no yes. Guys, you hear a no, you stop and learn these things. The conversation is needed. Can't wait to hear more on consent. And there was also a message that came through saying, in some cases, some of the smiles that Mo was talking about, the body language, sometimes the smile and the giggling is out of fear that you're going to make things sour. Amanya madoda get angry, and that is rapey in and of itself. I think it's the coercion that UPH was talking about. Let's take this break. On the other side, we continue with our conversation, and I want us to maybe unpack a bit further this issue of consent, because I think it intersects with power. Of our ladies here saying, ayikho le nto ka no yes. Sisanda?
Ayikho, and we need to, I think it's very naive for a man, especially in the times that we're living in now, to clearly hear someone mouth the word no and still interpret it as something else, and still try, and they do what they call in varsity lubricating her, marinating her, by bringing her alcohol or something that's going to make her change her mind, or selling her the dream of, no, yes, when I want to settle down with you, I want to build a future with you, under the premise of you want to get what you want, therefore you'll do whatever it is, even if it means placing yourself at risk of being a perpetrator because you at that particular moment. I think it also speaks to how we're socialized and gender roles. As a woman, it's not seen as socially acceptable for you to say, we're actually booty. I want it. Because then you're a slut, then you're a hoe, then awukhuliswanga kahle. At the same time, it goes back to how our parents treat the boy child and the girl child in the household. Mom and dad, I love you, but my brother is 8 years, 9 years old, and he can sit with my dad washing the car outside and talk about how he has like 3 girlfriends and it's okay, or there are 3 girls in his class that like him and it's fine. But my 17-year-old sister can't come back after 6 p.m. because kukho amakhwenkwe estratweni and amakhwenkwe uzawumeet her. And my dad raised us thinking boys have AIDS, stay away from boys, you know. So there are these conversations being had.
Except your brother.
Literally, it's like you absolve him because there's proximity. He's my son, he can't. So it goes back to how you are treating the boy child and the girl child. I always say there's agency that kicks in at some point in time, and it has to kick in because there are some people that have gone through traumatic experiences but have taken the active decision to say, I will not be that guy. So when you can't say because someone was that guy to me, now I must perpetually be that guy. So I think it really goes back to how we raise the boy child and the girl child in the household. It's simple things like my brother will sit next to my dad and we must bring the food to him. Or he'll come and say,
and once he's done,
or he'll come and say, no, Lindy Lambile. And I'm like, is cooking a gene that only exists in women? Like, you can't, we infantilize the boy or child. Yes, we must pay attention to them. The support programs, teach them the right way. But we can't infantilize them. We can't act like when your entire life path, you must just go from woman to woman. The woman whose womb you existed in to the woman who's going to be your teacher, then your girlfriend, then your wife. Really, you must be able to exist without a woman in your life. Tina, we're taught you must just exist. You must be powerful. You must do all of these things with no support structure, really, because there's this man who's going to look to you to be his support structure. Who supports the girl child? Who looks after her interests? Really, it's a conversation worth having.
Yeah, Lola?
Just to add on to that last bit, the way that struggle has been romanticized with women, especially black women, it needs to stop. Ukuti, you're strong. I'm tired of being strong, y'all.
Even Bogotos bleed.
I'm not even in Bogoto. I'm human.
Yeah.
You strike me, you strike a human being, I'm going to bleed. Those things need to stop because they're romanticizing struggle, say too. But also when you talk about consent, guys, this yes, no, maybe thing, there's no such thing in any language, yes, no. The underlying factor, Yokuti, the smile, the white knot, I think the person on Twitter did say in Durban, it's out of fear. And we are literally fearing men right now, I think even more than before. And when you say no, must we always be violent when we say no in order for you to get a good I'm saying no, So if you want to know when a woman says no with a smile, if she means it, when she says no, then stop. As well. But also it comes with entitlement.
Yeah.
Men don't get how entitled they are. I've been hearing a lot of his woman, our woman, my woman. It's a small things. You're entitled, so I can do it's our woman, so we can do what we want to do with them. You need to scrape that.
Lolo, here's a tweet here, and it's somebody else's, I guess, screenshotted it and shared it. It came through about a week ago. And it's from Edwin Tlangwani, and he says, growing up, we were taught that when a woman said no, she was challenging your ability to negotiate, to convince, to manipulate. And that was definitely rape indoctrination. But no one is willing to admit and let alone unlearn that. And I guess there's all of these crucial legs on which rape culture stands that we're probably not so conscious about even engaging. I mean, this whole thing about, hey, if sisters like, I mean, what is that, PH?
Yeah, sorry, what?
PH is sitting there paying no attention.
No, so like I said earlier on, it's the things. For me, I'm going to sound like a broken telephone, a broken record today. It's the things that have been normalized. Ne? My thing is, my color, I'm trying to change the conversation, to change the narrative. Again, a no is a no. There's no yes, no. When even in the courting phase, when she says "Booty and the phone," it mustn't be what's your number? Let me give you more money. Let me convert you. Those are the things that is clearly there, and we are taught that it's normal. No, man, she just, show us your Shella in power, For me, okay, let's leave that stuff. Let's
Sure.
change the narrative. How do we go forward?
Okay. PH, I want us to have the money conversation now. You're touching on money.
Yeah.
Someone spoke about lobola here earlier.
Yes,
on.
yes. And I wanted to
How we've corrupted and perverted lobola and made it transactional. And even growing up, there was always this idea that if I take you out, we go to the movies or we go and check whatever out,
Yeah.
I buy you drinks or whatever.
My
All of
boy,
those
no
things are
man.
done with a certain expectation
Yeah.
of something in return. Let's maybe unpack that transactionality more.
First, I want to go back to the issue of consent,
Okay, sure.
that men don't understand that you can say yes now and then later say no. I'll make a typical example. We have research studies. There's a clause that specifically said at any point in time you can withdraw from the study. You understand that clause, it's fine. You get uncomfortable throughout the study. You've said yes, but now you can withdraw. You understand it and you do that. It's the same with sexual related matters. A person can say yes now.
Sure.
And that during the process, maybe you're doing something that they find uncomfortable and thus beg you to stop. So you need to be able to control your impulses to an extent. If I stop, you need to stop.
Sure,
And this is also what I was saying, that people want to have sex, but they don't want to talk about it. You want to assume that the way that you like it is the way that she likes it, or the way that you like is the way that he's going to like it. So we tend to jump into these things sometimes without having had proper conversations, because sometimes you want to be emotionally compatible and what not compatible and but we run away from talking about, like he said, addressing the issues of lust. There may be fantasies that you have, and in the moment when now drink you like your own demon there, you stop adhering to the fact that there's something called consent. So I really feel that the basis of it all is to start talking about it and being honest about what is it that you want, and so that we avoid issues that you consent right now, you discover that you actually don't like it that way, or you said a yes, no, or a mang interpret like police station, it becomes messy and then you gaslight. And like she said, men tend to say all sorts of things. The woman must give them what they want. And then when now she comes back and wants to claim the world, the stars, the moon that you have promised her, you act like what? But my guy, you're the one. I was minding my own business.
And on the other side of the break, we're going to take two of our callers as we wrap up. But this thing, promising the moon, and then when you don't offer it, what's
they can very loving, and one opportunity they get, they will put you in a place where you feel like you're in a rut and you're unable to come up.
Sure. Anonymous, thank you so much for that. Unfortunately, we'll have to take two. Yeah, please go ahead.
It's shocking.
Thank you so much for that input there. Anonymous, I guess, saying that we also see instances of abuse being undertaken. I guess the base principle is that across the board, it doesn't matter who is doing it. It's wrong. It's wrong. Let's take Sihle, our last caller on this one. Okay. Oh, Sihle is not with us. Okay. That being said, I want us now to just tie up the conversation. I'm going to give everybody around the table 30 seconds. And what I want in that 30 seconds is what you think from a practical perspective can take us further in this conversation. I'm not naive enough to think that we have some grand idea that's going to wipe out all of the things we're talking about with one fell sweep of a wand. It's not going to happen. But let's put the suggestions down that are practical, that can take us forward in how we confront this particular issue. Mtimban, I'll start off with you, and we'll work our way back to PH.
Okay, sure. Bengithenje number one uku-accept yabona kakhulu ngizokhuluma nama-out mina just before we wrap up, and then here I think in the sky direction. You know what I did, mina, ngami, personally, when I realized that now there was a serious problem. Let me identify two people. One who's going to be my spiritual father, one who's going to be my mentor. Bishop Benjamin Dube, he endorsed my book, and since in plug away. And then Dr. Mlapo, he stretched me, said, go back to school. I went back, I graduated. Namhlanje Leve is a bed of roses because I accept my flaws, and then Bambi reality, and then since Bambi from there. So in that way, religion, I don't care whether you embrace Islamic religion, Buddhism, whether Ushembe, but it's important for you to connect some way. It's very important.
Sure. Sisand?
I think to the gents, we know that you have visualized or you are normalized to say the extreme is what should be called out. The extreme is what is wrong. But don't wait for there to be bloodshed on your hands for you to realize that that's where the problem lies. The problem lies with you, with myself walking into a room and you not seeing me as your equal, but seeing me for an object and something to be owned by you, something to be conquered by you. I think respect not only the woman around you, not only the woman that you have proximity to, but just fellow women because they are human. To my sisters, I know it's very hard to speak out. I know that it is a traumatic thing to go through, to be a victim of gender-based violence, but you will not be a victim forever. It is okay to speak out, and I believe you.
Mo?
I think I want to highlight the fact that the only behavior that you can truly control is your own, and the only thing that you can provide others with is information. So ye who is enlightened, who knows right from wrong, be the model that we're talking about. Be the one who shows desirable behavior, punishes undesirable behavior, and so that those that are looking, the young ones, can learn from your observationally from the kind of behavior that we want the society to then start having. And those who seek help, different things work for people. Others prefer going for psychotherapy. Others want to be activists. There are a whole lot of things that you can do. There's a certain defense mechanism actually called sublimation. So that's when you start taking all the negative things in your life and turning them into something positive. So I think if we can just direct our bad energies or demons into something more constructive, that would be great.
Okay. Kai?
I think for me, it would be taking responsibility. I think I've had to take responsibility for the choices that I've made in my life, right and wrong, and own up to that. That's number one. I think if we were to take responsibility of our actions and know that God has given us a responsibility to care as men, to protect as men, that's what our strength is for. And is to refocus our responsibilities and use what has been given to us as a responsibility in a correct manner. I think the second thing that's important for me, I started doing last week. It was a bit uncomfortable. I called out some of my friends. You know, they called me out about certain things that I've done, And if we are unable to correct one another, that means we cannot walk with each other. I feel like if we can use that as a standard of our lives, it's going to be very hard to do so, because we, as men, we come from a very strong, we ride and die.
Yeah.
But let's rather die so that we cannot perpetrate the culture that's continuing and destroying our communities the way that it is.
Mo?
I think we need to impart the correct values, and not just to boy children, but to the girl child as well. The kind of stuff that is empowering for both. And I think we need to be better examples as parents, as brothers, as friends. And I think that will go to some way in dealing with some of the things we've been looking at today, the confusion around what is yes, what is no. I need to get her. She said no, but I must persist. The issues around, well, at the end of the day, I'm the man and therefore my say is final. I think if we can impart the correct values that are empowering for both young boys and young girls, we're heading in the right direction.
So I promise myself and I vow to other guys that their mothers, their wives, their daughters around me, they're safe. It's something that I want to do for myself. Just like my wife, I've got daughters, and they will have a different experience of a man. And then I'm also willing to work with any man, any organization that is willing to assist. I run parenting classes, I do mentorship things, so anybody who needs help, I offer myself, because I think we all have to just do our little bit to change. Yeah.
Salute. Lolo?
I think in the room I've really been captured with what we need to do as individuals. I think also I need to call out always government. There needs to be things implemented, policies implemented, so that people do not always think they can get away with these crimes and being irresponsible and shying away from their actions and yeah. So also, I'm also encouraging men to come out tomorrow and shut down Sandton with us, because there's a lot of things that contribute to gender-based violence and ending it, and one of them is also calling out stuff like business. So we want the fight to be funded, so that we're able to have programs that will help Abantu Bafana Nobut, Anonymous, and so forth.
Sure.
And there is no money to do that, or shelters. So can we all meet at Sandton at 3 a.m. this morning?
Seems like Eskom and Megawatt Park doesn't want us to be great, but we continue nonetheless. PH, you have the last word, man.
Speak out, speak up. Kalangati Majita, calling out your friends, addressing your friends. That's one. I think, changing just within your circles, within yourself, introspection as well. And it's changed the narrative. I think that's for me. Unlearn, like I said. Be held accountable if you have, but still many main switch and just realize kumnyama and kuze kanye, we need to find the problem.
Awesome stuff, guys. Thank you very much, all of you, for taking time out to join us this evening. Yes, give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you very much. And I guess from us as the team at Metro FM Talk, we can commit that this will always and continue to be a platform for healing for all of us. Because even as a Madoda, we sometimes forget that, this misogyny, this patriarchy, and some of these anti-woman behaviors that are anti-black women take away from our own humanity as well. And this evening I doff our hat to everybody who's contributed to this conversation, all of you who've contributed on Twitter, those of you that have been watching on YouTube and on Facebook and on Instagram. Doff my hat to you. Big thank you to all of you. And that's it for us this week. Have yourself a great evening. Siyayibanga.